I didn't cry when my mother texted me. I didn't throw my phone across the room. I just sat at my kitchen island in Toronto, read the message 3 times, and poured myself another coffee. Thanksgiving is just going to be immediate family this year, you understand? I understood perfectly. Immediate family. That was the phrase she used. The same family that had spent the last 4 years pretending I didn't exist unless they needed something from me. The same family that called me ungrateful when I moved out at 22 and bought my own place. The same family that, the Christmas before, had passed around a card for everyone to sign, everyone except me, and left it sitting on the kitchen table where I could see it. I put my phone face down on the counter and went back to my laptop. I had a 9 a.m. call with a firm in Vancouver. Let me go back a bit. I'm 31. I grew up in Mississauga, second of 3 kids. My older brother, I'll just call him my brother, was always the one who could do no wrong. Hockey, grades, charm. My younger sister was the baby, the one everyone worried about and protected. And then there was me, the middle one, the one who was too serious, too sensitive, always making things difficult. I don't think my parents were cruel people. I think they were overwhelmed and I happened to be the easiest one to overlook. By the time I was in my mid-20s, I had built something. Not by accident, by necessity. I'd gone into environmental consulting right out of university, worked my face off for 5 years, and then took a risk and launched my own firm at 28. Small at first. Just me and a contract researcher working out of a co-working space in Liberty Village. Then 2 employees. Then 6. Then a team of 14 operating across 3 provinces. At 30, I sold the methodology platform we'd built, a proprietary assessment tool for industrial environmental compliance, to a larger firm based in Calgary. The deal closed quietly. There was no press release, no LinkedIn post, no party. My lawyer sent me a wire transfer confirmation on a Tuesday morning, and I sat with it for about 10 minutes and then went to get a sandwich. My family didn't know. Not because I was hiding it. Because they'd stopped asking about my work years earlier. My mother's standard question at family dinners, back when I still attended them, was whether I was still doing the environment thing. My brother once, at Easter, asked if my little business was holding up okay. My sister never asked at all, so I let it be quiet. I bought a house on Lake Simcoe, 3 bedrooms, stone fireplace, dock that runs out over the water. I stopped going to Sunday dinners. I stopped being available every time my mother needed someone to pick up my grandmother from her appointments or drive a casserole dish across the city. I stopped making myself small enough to fit inside the shape they'd carved out for me, and then came the Thanksgiving text, immediate family. I sat with it for 2 days, not because I was devastated. I wasn't, exactly. I'd been bracing for something like this. What stung was the timing. 3 weeks earlier, my mother had called to ask if I could help cover the deposit for my brother's new truck. He'd had some cash flow issues. She didn't ask me how I was doing. She called, explained the situation, and waited. I'd sent $3,000 by e-transfer before the end of the day. She'd thanked me with a text that said, "You're a good girl." 2 weeks later, immediate family only. I thought about calling her. I drafted the message twice. Then I closed the app and opened my calendar instead. Thanksgiving weekend in Canada. Long weekend. The lake house was empty. I'd been meaning to have people up for months and kept pushing it back because of work, because of contracts, because of everything that always came first. I started making calls. My best friend since grade 11, I'll call her my best friend because that's what she is, answered on the second ring. I told her I had the house to myself for Thanksgiving and asked if she and her husband wanted to come up with the kids. She said yes before I finished the sentence. I called my work partner, the researcher who'd been with me since the beginning. He'd been through the whole ride, the co-working space, the late nights, the deal. He said he'd bring his girlfriend and his mom, who was visiting from Halifax and had nowhere to spend the holiday. I called my old university roommate, who I hadn't seen since June. She was going to spend Thanksgiving alone because her boyfriend had gone home to Edmonton without her. She cried a little on the phone. I told her to bring her dog. I called my neighbor from my old condo. A woman in her 60s, recently widowed, who had always brought me soup when I was sick and who I'd always meant to do more for. She said she hadn't had a real Thanksgiving dinner in 3 years, 12 people total by the time the weekend came. I drove up Friday afternoon and spent the night prepping. Stuffed turkey, roasted squash, mashed potatoes, gravy from scratch, butter tarts for dessert, all of it. I borrowed extra chairs from the neighbor 2 cottages. I put tea lights in mason jars along the dock. The leaves were at full peak, orange and gold over the water, and the whole thing looked like something from a magazine I'd never be caught dead buying. My phone was mostly silent. I had it on the kitchen counter charging, face up. Saturday morning, my friends started arriving in waves. The kids ran straight for the water. Someone's dog knocked over a lawn chair. My best friend's husband burned his hand testing the oven and spent 10 minutes holding it under the tap while everyone laughed at him. My neighbor from the condo sat in the best chair by the window and held a glass of wine with both hands like it was something precious. I took a photo of the table before we sat down. 14 dishes, candles, the lake in the background through the window. Everyone I'd called was sitting at it or standing behind it, and every single one of them looked genuinely happy to be there. I posted it to Instagram, didn't think too much about it. Tagged the location, Lake Simcoe, Ontario. Tagged the occasion, wrote, "Made my own table this year. Grateful doesn't cover it." And then I put my phone in my pocket and sat down to eat. I didn't check my notifications for 3 hours. When I finally stepped outside to get some air, my best friend's youngest had fallen asleep on the couch, and the adults had migrated to the dock with wine. I pulled out my phone. 41 missed calls. I actually laughed. Out loud, standing on the dock in the dark watching my breath fog in the cold air. 11 from my mother, 8 from my brother, 6 from my sister. The rest were seats. My mother's best friend, a cousin I hadn't spoken to in 2 years. There were texts layered underneath all of it. I scrolled without reading them properly, catching phrases. "What is that house? How long have you had this? Why didn't you tell us? We need to talk right away." My brother had also emailed. The subject line was, "We are family." I put my phone back in my pocket. I went back inside and had a butter tart. The calls kept coming through Sunday. I let them all go to voicemail. I wasn't being dramatic about it. I genuinely didn't want to ruin the weekend. I had people to take care of. My neighbor from the condo was leaving Monday morning and I wanted her last night to be good. The kids were doing a scavenger hunt along the shoreline, and I'd promised to help judge. It was the best Thanksgiving I'd had in years. Maybe ever. Monday afternoon, after everyone had gone home and the dishes were done and the house was quiet, I sat down at the kitchen table with a cup of tea and went through the voicemails. My mother's first message was confused, not angry, just disoriented. "I saw your post. I didn't know you had a house up there. Why didn't you say anything? Call me back." By her fourth message, the tone had shifted. "Your brother is very upset. We need to talk about some things as a family. There's a lot that doesn't make sense." By her eighth, "You've been keeping things from us. I don't understand why you would do that. I thought we were close." I sat with that one for a while. Close. We were close. I tried to remember the last time my mother had called just to hear how I was doing. Not to ask a favor, not to relay information about my brother's life or my sister's latest crisis, just to ask, "How are you? What's happening for you?" I couldn't find one. My brother's voicemails were a different register entirely. The first one was calculated. He'd clearly thought about what he wanted to say. He mentioned the $3,000 truck deposit, called it a loan, which was the first time that word had been used, and said he assumed I'd want it paid back now that things were clearer. He said this carefully, like he was building towards something. The second one dropped the careful part. "You sold a company and you didn't tell anyone. You're sitting on a lake house and you didn't tell anyone. Meanwhile, Mum's been struggling and I've been struggling and you've just been up there. What, laughing at us?" I wasn't laughing at anyone. I was eating turkey with people who actually showed up for me. But I listened to the whole thing. My sister had left one voicemail. Short. She said she felt like she didn't know me. She said I'd made her look stupid in front of people. though she didn't explain who or how or why my existence at a lake I'd purchased with my own money had anything to do with her. Then she said, "I just think it's really unfair that you have all this and you've been watching us struggle." I paused there. I thought about the $3,000 transfer. I thought about the 4 years of Sunday dinners I'd attended alone, with hostess gifts, cooking contributions, always arriving early and leaving late. I thought about my grandmother's medical appointments and the casserole dishes, and every time I'd reorganized my own schedule because someone in that family had a need I was expected to meet without question or acknowledgement. And then I thought about my mother's text. Immediate family this year. I deleted the voicemails. My mother called again Tuesday morning. I picked up. She started with, "I just want to understand." I told her I'd understand that, and I waited. She talked for a while. About the Instagram post, about the house, about the company sale. Somehow she'd found out details. I assume from my brother, who'd apparently done some research. She said she felt blindsided. She said she wished I'd told her. She said the family had been going through a hard time, and it was hard to see that I had all of this and hadn't shared it with them. I let her finish. Then I said, "Mum, 3 weeks ago you called me to ask for $3,000 for the truck deposit. You didn't ask how I was doing. You didn't ask about my work. You called because you needed something. I sent it the same day. 2 weeks later, you texted me that Thanksgiving was immediate family only." Silence. I kept going, because I'd been thinking about this for 4 days and I wanted to say it cleanly. I've been showing up for this family for years. Not because anyone asked me to, because I wanted to. I thought that was what you did. But somewhere along the way, I realized that it only worked in one direction. No one in this family has ever once asked me what I needed, what I was working toward, whether I was okay, and that's fine. People have their own lives, I understand that. But if you don't know about my huge company, it's not because I was hiding from you. It's because you never asked. My mother was quiet for a long time. She said, "That's not fair." I said, "I know you believe that," and then I said something I'd been practicing for about a year without knowing I was practicing it. "I love you. But I've spent a long time trying to be enough for this family and not quite making it. I need a break from that. I don't know how long. I'll reach out when I'm ready." I hung up. My hands were completely steady. My brother emailed twice more. I didn't respond. The second email had a subject line that said legal question and contained a paragraph about whether the $3,000 was technically a gift or a loan, and whether I had documentation. I forwarded it to my lawyer with one line. "Fie, no action needed at this time." My lawyer responded, "Understood. Let me know if that changes." It didn't change. What followed was a strange kind of quiet, not uncomfortable, not empty, just space. Like when you've been living next to a highway for so long you stop hearing the noise, and then it stops, and you realize how loud it had been. I went back to work. I took on a new contract with a mid-sized mining company in Northern Ontario. Remediation assessment, the kind of project I'd built my whole methodology around. I hired a junior analyst in late November. A sharp recent graduate from Dalhousie who reminded me a little of myself at 22. My best friend and I started a standing Tuesday phone call. My old university roommate came back to the lake house in November with her dog, and we did a puzzle and watched the snow come in over the water. My neighbor from the condo, the recently widowed woman, and I started a loose tradition of meeting for dim sum in Scarborough on Sunday mornings. She told me about her late husband. I told her about the company sale, the whole story, and she listened in a way that made me feel like it was actually worth telling. My grandmother called me in December. Not my mother. My grandmother. She was 83 and used a landline and called because, she said, she'd been thinking about me. We talked for 40 minutes. She told me she was proud of me. She told me she'd always seen something in me that the rest of them didn't quite catch. She said she hoped I wouldn't disappear entirely. Not for their sake, she clarified, for hers. I cried a little after that call. Good cry. The kind that means something landed right. My mother texted in January. Not about the house, not about the company, not about Thanksgiving. Just, thinking of you. Hope you're well. I waited 3 days and then wrote back. Thank you. I'm doing really well. That was it. That was the whole exchange. I don't know what comes next, honestly. I'm not building toward a dramatic reconciliations or a clean break. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm just living. In the house I built, on the lake I bought, with the people who actually showed up. Last week, I had a dinner party at the lake house. 10 people, a Saturday night in mid-January, the kind of cold where the lake had frozen solid past the end of the dock. We lit the fireplace, and someone brought a really good Niagara Riesling and my best friend's husband. His hand fully healed, for the record, made everyone play a card game he'd invented himself that made absolutely no sense, answered me. At some point I looked around the table. Nobody there was related to me by blood. Every single one of them had chosen to be there. I'd chosen them back. I thought about my mother's text, immediate family. I thought, yes, exactly. I poured another glass of wine and I stayed at the table until midnight.